HOA illegally ran a pipeline across my ranch, so I bought the source and cut their water forever. The Texas sun beat down on my ranch, turning the grass to brittle straw. For 30 years, this land had been my life, 600 acres of rolling hills, stubborn mesquite, and memories of my late wife, Clara. We'd built this place from nothing, pouring our hearts into every fence post and cattle trough. But the new HOA development, Karen's Flower Estates, had other plans for my peace. They called it progress. I called it theft. It started 2 years ago when Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, showed up with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She said the growing suburb needed water, and their pipeline would just cross a corner of my land. I said no. This was Clara's land, our legacy, not some shortcut for their sprinklers. But Karen didn't listen. Neither did the county, swayed by her promises of tax revenue. One morning, I woke to bulldozers tearing through my pasture, laying a pipeline without my consent. Legal battles followed, but their lawyers were sharks, and my savings dwindled. The court ruled in their favor, claiming eminent domain. My blood boiled. I wasn't raised to roll over. My father taught me that land is blood, and you fight for it. So I dug deeper. The pipeline drew water from a private spring 20 miles north, owned by a failing cattle operation. I sold my best herd, took out a loan, and bought that spring outright. The day I signed the deed, I felt Clara's spirit nod in approval. I didn't tell a soul, not my son, Jake, who'd moved to Austin to escape ranch life, nor my neighbor, Old Man Tate, who'd warned me about Karen's kind. Karen's Flower Estates gleamed like a magazine cover, perfect lawns, identical houses, and kids on bikes. But their water came from my spring now. I drove to the source, a quiet basin surrounded by cottonwoods, and found the main valve. With one turn of my wrench, I shut it off. The pipeline went dry. Their sprinklers sputtered. Their fountains choked. By noon, Karen was at my gate, her face redder than the clay soil. "You can't do this," she screamed, waving a cease and desist letter. "This is sabotage. We'll sue you into oblivion." I leaned on my truck, calm as stone. "You trespassed first, Karen. This spring's mine. No water, no HOA paradise." She stormed off, promising war. I expected lawsuits, maybe a sheriff. What I didn't expect was Ellie, a young lawyer who showed up the next day. She wasn't from Karen's crew. She was a pro bono advocate for rural landowners, soft-spoken but sharp as a tack. She'd heard about my case through a friend at the county clerk's office and offered to help. Her eyes sparkled with the kind of fire Clara used to have, and for a moment, I let myself hope. Ellie uncovered records showing the HOA's pipeline permits were rushed, possibly forged. We had a case to reverse the court's ruling. For weeks we fought. Ellie worked late, poring over documents in my dusty kitchen, while I kept the spring locked tight. The HOA's lawns turned brown, their resale values tanked, and Karen's perfect world unraveled. Neighbors turned on her, and protests erupted at their community center. I felt a grim satisfaction watching their utopia crack until Jake called. "Dad, you're killing their homes," he said, voice heavy. "People are losing everything. Is this worth it?" His words stung. Clara had always said revenge poisons the soul, but I'd ignored her wisdom. Then came the twist. Ellie found a new document. The spring's previous owner had signed a secret deal with Karen years ago, guaranteeing water access to the HOA even if the spring changed hands. My purchase didn't void it. I'd been outplayed before I'd even started. The revelation hit like a gut punch. Ellie pushed for a settlement, restore the water, negotiate compensation for my land. But Karen, smelling blood, refused to budge. She wanted me crushed. The HOA rallied, painting me as a villain hoarding water while their kids went thirsty. Social media exploded with hashtags like Ranch Tyrant. I was alone, except for Ellie, who stayed even when I snapped at her out of frustration. One night I drove to the spring. The moon hung low, reflecting off the still water. I thought of Clara, how she'd have handled this with grace, not wrath. I saw her face in the ripples, urging me to let go. But I couldn't. The next morning, I cut the pipeline itself, severed it with bolt cutters, letting the water spill into the dirt. If I couldn't win, neither would they. The fallout was swift. The HOA sued for millions. Ellie fought hard, but the evidence was damning. The court ordered me to pay damages I couldn't afford. The Ranch Clara's ranch was auctioned off to cover the debt. Karen's flower estates got their water back, their lawns green again. While I moved into a one-bedroom in town, my life reduced to a few boxes and a broken heart. Ellie visited me last week, her eyes full of regret. "You fought for what was yours," she said. "But sometimes justice isn't fair." I nodded, staring at the faded photo of Clara on my nightstand. I'd won the spring but lost everything else. The HOA thrived, but whispers spread that Karen's permits were under investigation. Maybe Ellie's work would bring her down yet. Maybe not. All I knew was the bitterness in my chest, heavier than any victory. What would you have done? Fought for your land or let it go for the greater good?